But here's why I think the biggest problem has happened. And this is something that many former players have faced. The NFL is roughly 60, 65% black, 30, 35% white, maybe even a little more than that now. And so people wonder, like, well, why aren't there more black coaches that are? Then there are. They're working their way up and they're getting in there. And there's more that every single year that come through. And it's just finally gotten to the point now. And it goes for regardless of skin color. For a long time, I would talk to former teammates of mine of all races about getting into coaching. And the biggest hurdle they had is whether they played in college and played a little in the NFL, had long careers, is no one gave them credit for the playing career that they had in college and the NFL. And so when they tried to go get a job and talk to people, like, well, you've never done it before. Like, well, I understand I've never coached before, but I've been around the game a lot. Like, can I at least get an interview? Can I get a meeting? Well, I mean, this guy's got 10 years experience. So as a player, you're going to penalize me for playing 10 years in the NFL. When this guy, played a little bit in college, maybe was a GA or, started as a student assistant, and got a GA job and get all this. And so he has a longer tenure, but you're not going to give me credit for my playing experience and being around the game. And that was the message of a lot of guys. And so it discouraged a lot of guys from getting in it. Number one, like, dude, I'm not going to start at the bottom, at the very bottom at, 32, 33, 35 years old, when there's other guys here that I know I'm better than, that I'm better than as a head coach or as a front office exec. And you're not going to give me the opportunity simply because you don't count my playing experience because I was a good player. It didn't make any sense. And so that started to change. And that's why you're going to start to see, more former players as head coaches. You see one right now with Mike Vrabel and what he's been able to do. And you know what? He started out, he got a position coaching job at Ohio State, got hired, with the Texans because they knew of, his prowess. All of a sudden ascends there. Next thing you know, he's the head coach at Tennessee, and they're the number one seed in the AFC. You'll get another guy, Dan Campbell, gets a job. He's out of New Orleans. He played for Sean Payton. Sean knew what he was. He gets in there. He's assistant, special teams coach, does that, works his way up, head offensive assistant, all these different things. Finally gets the job at Detroit. Those are two white guys. What is Dan Campbell do? Hey, well, he brings the best guys that he knows. A guy who's a former teammate of mine who's also on that staff with Sean Payton, Aaron Glenn, one of the smartest dudes I know. So he's a defensive coordinator in Detroit. Aaron Glenn is a very, very bright dude. He understands the game. He's a great communicator. When he gets in a room with people, they're going to like him. You're going to want to hire this guy. Former player. Guys respect him. Another guy who I play with who in New England, they haven't given him the coordinator title, Gerard Mayo, former player, comes in, starts coaching pretty quickly afterwards with Bill. And up in New England, they've got all these crazy titles and they just basically keep everybody the same. He gets he's going to get an opportunity. He's already interviewed with the Texans. It wouldn't surprise me, if he's the front runner there, given Nick Caserio's ties to New England. And so he's another guy could potentially get a head job. Byron Leftwich, we've talked about with him for a while now with the job that he's done. Offensive guy, former quarterback, coordinating a really good team, working well with Tom Brady. He's going to get some looks. The guy on the other side of him, Todd Bowles, former player. He's coached for a while and worked his way up the ranks, was a head coach with the Jets, had a little bit of success. But you know what? They didn't really have a great quarterback situation. The Jets are usually a mess, and he ultimately gets fired, lands in Tampa, puts it together again. I think his second tenure will be much better. Played for Todd in Dallas, really bright guy. And that's what players respect. Guys who know the game, guys who understand the game. And now we're finally starting to see some of these former players. Eric Bieniemy, Chiefs, been passed over a bunch. I'm sure he'll end up getting a head job here soon, and he really should. Really should. And the problem is Andy Reid is so tied to that offense and tethered in there. People have a hard time decoupling who is the one who's really pulling the strings. You had a guy like Matt Nagy. He was his offensive coordinator. He goes to Chicago, and all he does, he struggles. And so that probably hurts Eric Bieniemy as much as anything, is the fact that, Andy Reid disciple really wasn't as good as people would have, hoped that he would have been. D'Amico Ryans, with what he's done out in San Francisco, former linebacker, came out with me, worked his way up pretty quickly. He's the coordinator now of a really good defense. And so as you see these things happen, and you look around, former players are starting to move their way up, and they're moving up quicker, and they relate really well. And most former players, they could give two craps about what color skin the guys are they have playing for them. They just want the best players, guys that can understand what they're doing, guys that can execute the jobs. And so that is the one thing that's ultimately going to change this. And so everybody wishes there was some like magic bullet, and then the media loves to sit here and point at it and poke at it. There's only one black coach. Well, yeah, there's 8 jobs open as well. And I think a number of those are going to be filled by some of the guys that I just mentioned who are bright, who are former players, who communicate really well. They understand the game and they have that game experience, which you don't have to have played at a high level to be a coach, but it doesn't hurt. It can only help. And guys trust you a little bit more because you know what? When you tell a guy, hey, we need you to do this. I know in this situation, whether this coverage, this blocking scheme, whatever it is, this route tree, this is something that's going to be really hard. And it's all falling on you on this play. And I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. I've done it. I know how hard it is. I know exactly what you're going through. I've been there, but we need you to do it on this play and this grouping, whatever it is. And so guys understand that because you can relate and they're more willing to listen to you and to buy in because you've been around and you can have those shared experiences. And so as we look at all this and we see, hey, there's some black coaches that have been given really short leashes, white coaches have been given longer. Listen, there's a lot of guys that are fired in the NFL for failing to perform. Like Brian Flores performed really well in his 3rd year. He still got fired. People saw that around the league. He's going to get another job. If Stephen Ross wants to fire him, that's his prerogative. But Brian Flores put a pretty darn good product out there after they mortgaged everything away early on, sold out on the hopes of being better later. They finally were better later, and part of the reason they said that Deshaun Watson wanted to go to Miami was because of Brian Flores. It's not a mistake. It's not a mistake. So he'll get another job. He'll get interviews. He'll get another job. But I'm telling you, as these guys continue to come up, the former player element of the hiring process is going to be big. And to get diversity in coaching, that's what it's going to take. And as these guys continue to filter in players and they ascend quicker and faster, that's going to help solve the problem. Because guys are of all races, you're going to be able to get in there. But the league, like I said, it's 60, 65, maybe 70% black. And because of that, you're going to be giving guys opportunity to be coaches, minority coaches, work their way up quickly, and then be able to be coordinators and then have that pathway to one of these jobs. And that will solve this. That solves the problem. It's the silver bullet. The problem is that silver bullet isn't shot and it doesn't land overnight. So it's going to take some time, but we're right on the cusp, I think, of something like that happening. And football, here's the last piece of this. Football is a meritocracy. It is one of the few meritocracies left in this world where you can even get fired when you do perform just because of some other things tangentially around happening to you. But you were judged on your performance. You were paid on your performance. You were given extensions. You were hired based on your performance 99% of the time. And you know what? That's the way it should be. And that's why I really love the NFL and everything that came with it, because in the rest of society, I get sick of dealing with all the nonsense of everything that has to go on. You are judged by your works in the NFL. And that's why I think you're going to start seeing some of these things ultimately change, because some of these former players are going to have success. And I think that's going to end up being the secret elixir that kind of gets this thing going a little bit. And these guys are going to do a great job and people are going to love them.